Welcome back to the Urban Herald. Today we are doing a deep dive into, well, what you might call a digital fossil, but one that's surprisingly alive.
We're talking about the Tamagotchi.
Exactly. That little egg-shaped gadget from the 90s, it feels like a toy, maybe just a fad.
Right, it's easy to just dismiss it like that. But, when you really dig into the history, the source material, and especially the psychology behind it, it was doing something pretty radical back then.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of laying down the tracks, the blueprint for how we interact with technology now, our whole always-on notification-filled world.
Absolutely, and that's the key.
So when we call it a digital fossil, we don't actually mean it's dead and buried. Not at all. It's more like it contains the basic DNA, the sort of architectural plan, for almost every digital thing we're hooked on today.
Hmm.
So our mission here at the Urban Herald is to unpack that. Where did this phenomenon come from? And how exactly did this little pixel pet basically train a whole generation for, well, the age of the algorithm?
And it's crucial to get the scale right off the bat. This isn't just some dusty museum piece we're talking about. The Tamagotchi franchise is, believe it or not, thriving. It's active.
Really? Still going strong.
Oh, yeah. Global sales are projected to hit over 100 million units by 2025. That's massive. And they're still innovating. We're seeing major launches, like just this year, 2025, the global release of Tamagotchi Paradise, plus updates for the Tamagotchi Uni, which is Wi-Fi enabled.
Wow. So it's kept evolving. It's not stuck in the 90s.
Not even close. It's an active, developing ecosystem.
So what does that mean for you listening right now? Well, think about that little buzz in your pocket from your phone. That anxiety, maybe.
Or like the need to keep your Snapchat streaks going.
Exactly. Or Duolingo sending you those slightly passive-aggressive owl reminders.
Yeah, the guilt trips.
That feeling, that compulsion, that sense of responsibility toward a digital thing.
That's the Tamagotchi blueprint. Refined, scaled up, absolutely everywhere now. It taught us fundamentally how to feel responsible for and connected to digital entities.
Okay, so let's rewind. Back to the start. Japan, 1996. This is where the idea first sparked.
And the origin story is actually quite empathetic. It wasn't about tech for tech's sake. It started with a problem about pets. Real pets.
Right. It centers on Akihiro Yokoi. He was an executive at Wizico, a small product planning company.
Yeah, and the story goes, Yokoi saw this ad. It was about a little boy who was really upset, genuinely heartbroken because he had to leave his pet turtle behind to go on a holiday. And Yokoi, apparently a pet owner himself, just got it. He understood that feeling, that conflict. You want to be mobile, go places, but you have this living thing you need to care for.
So the light bulb moment was, what if the pet wasn't physical?
Exactly. What if it existed entirely in the digital realm? A pet you could take anywhere, but one that still needed you, still demanded your attention.
It sounds simple now, but back then, that was a pretty radical concept.
Totally. But, having the idea is one thing. Making it happen is another. And Yokoi hits some major roadblocks right away. Constraints.
Money, right. It always comes down to cost.
Absolutely. The big one was price. I mean, portable gaming existed. The Game Boy was huge.
Sure, everyone had a Game Boy. Or wanted one.
But Game Boys were what? $50, maybe $90. They were a considered purchase. Yokoi knew his digital pet needed to be different. For it to become this cultural thing, it had to be almost an impulse buy. Cheap. Really cheap. Accessible to basically everyone.
Okay, so how do you make cheap tech in the mid-90s? You don't use the latest stuff.
Precisely. He went low tech. Deliberately. Yeah. The sources call it withered technology.
Withered technology. That sounds kind of negative, like outdated junk.
It sounds counterintuitive, yeah, but it was actually brilliant. It's a philosophy you saw with Nintendo, too, especially with Gunpei Yokoi, no relation, by the way.
Oh, interesting connection. So what does it mean?
It means using technology that's already mature, proven, reliable, and crucially, super cheap, because it's no longer cutting edge. It's about lateral thinking, using old tech in new ways.
So instead of fancy new chips and color screens?
He went for the basics, really basic, simple 8-bit processors, minimal memory, like really minimal, and those cheap black and white LCD screens, no backlight, nothing fancy.
And that choice, that constraint, it actually shaped the whole experience, didn't it?
Fundamentally. Because the tech was so limited, tiny battery, basic screen, the graphics had to be simple. Pixelated blobs, basically.
Which became iconic.
Totally iconic. And the interface. With that limited power, you could only really support a few buttons. They ended up with just 3. Select, cancel, enter. That's it.
So you couldn't have complex menus or controls.
Nope. It forced this extreme simplicity. which, ironically, made it incredibly accessible. Anyone could pick it up and understand it immediately. And because the tech was so stripped back, the focus shifted entirely to the interaction, the emotional connection with this little pixel creature. The starkness almost made its personality shine through more.
It's fascinating. The limitations created the aesthetic, the feel of the thing.
Exactly. The scarcity was the design, in a way.
But Yokoi's company, WZ, they couldn't launch this globally on their own. They needed a giant.
Right. Enter Bandai, the toy behemoth.
And this is where Aki Maeda comes into the picture. She wasn't the inventor, but she was key in figuring out how to sell this weird digital egg to the world.
Yeah, Maida was in marketing at Bandai, and she just got it. She saw the potential, but also who the target audience should be.
Not necessarily little kids.
Not primarily, no. She apparently aimed it more towards older teenage girls. People who were into fashion, novelty, sure, but also, crucially, emotional investment. They cared about connection.
And she was involved in the branding, the packaging.
Big time. The name, Tamagotchi, that was reportedly her influence, or at least her team's. It's a mashup, right?
Tamago egg.
Yep, tamago for egg. And wachi, which is like the Japanese way of saying watch.
Egg watch.
It instantly tells you what it is. A little life inside an egg shape, connected to time, always there, like a watch. It's pretty clever branding.
And the look. Those characters weren't exactly beautiful. They're kind of weird looking.
Definitely weird, but intentionally so. That was another smart choice, tapping into an aesthetic called Hedouma.
Hatauma. What's that?
It roughly translates to bad good, or maybe clumsy skilled. It was this style popular in Japanese teen magazines back then, intentionally crude, maybe a bit naive, but really endearing and charming because of it. Not polished or slick.
So they deliberately made the pixel characters look like that. Simple, approachable blobs.
Exactly. It made them non-threatening, instantly likable. It appealed more to, like, your heart than your head. You weren't judging the graphics, you were connecting with the creature.
And it worked. You see that kind of lo-fi appeal still today, right? Simple avatars, minimalist design.
Absolutely. It proved you don't need hyperrealism for deep emotional connection. Sometimes less is way, way more.
So Bandai puts all this together. They launch in Japan, November 23rd, 1996. And boom.
Boom is the right word. The sources aren't just saying, oh, it sold well. They literally call it the detonation of a cultural phenomenon. The fuse was lit.
And the explosion wasn't just contained to Japan, right? This thing went global, fast.
Oh, incredibly fast. The speed was just wild, especially for something that wasn't, a traditional video game.
Give us the numbers. How big did it get? How quickly?
Okay, so less than a year after the Japanese launch, they'd sold 10 million units. Globally.
10 million in under a year.
Yeah. Bandai was completely swamped. They just hadn't anticipated that level of demand. They were frantically trying to ramp up production. The sources say they were aiming for 3 million units a month.
3 million a month, just to try and keep up.
Just to keep pace. It wasn't like a short spike. It was this sustained, massive global hunger for these little digital eggs.
That's insane. It must have had ripples beyond just toy stores.
Oh, absolutely. It actually started impacting finance, which is just wild when you think about it.
How so?
There's this amazing story in the source material. Bandai did this promotion for their shareholders. If you held 1,000 shares or more, you got a free Tamagotchi.
Okay, nice little perk.
Yeah, but the market reaction was nuts. The next day, Bandai's stock price jumped 60 yen. And maybe even more significantly, the number of shares traded that day. It quadrupled.
Quadrupled. Just because of a free Tamagotchi offer.
It showed the financial world was taking notice. This little plastic egg wasn't just a toy. It was driving serious market confidence, serious capital.
Wow. Okay, so then it hits North America, May 1st, 1997. Did things calm down by then? Did they have enough stock?
Nope. Not even slightly. The chaos just repeated itself, maybe even intensified.
Any specific examples?
Yeah, the anecdotes are crazy. FAO Schwartz in San Francisco, they got 3,000 units for the launch day, sold out by 3 p.m.
3,000 gone in, what, 6 hours?
Pretty much. The New York flagship store, they supposedly sold 10,000 by noon the next day.
10,000.
And at the absolute peak, the estimates are that 15 Tamagotchis were selling every single minute across the U.S. and Canada.
Every minute, 15.
Yeah. It's hard to even picture that velocity. By 1998, they'd sold around 40 million worldwide in total for that first wave. And North America accounted for about 12 million of those.
That level of demand, that intensity, it must have led to some pretty weird behavior in the real world.
Definitely. This is where you really see the device starting to clash with, normal life. Digital demands bumping up against physical reality.
Like what? People taking them too seriously.
Totally. We're talking documented reports of, like, Japanese businesswomen canceling important work meetings because their Tamagotchi needed attention right then.
Canceling meetings. Seriously.
Seriously. And even more extreme, people were apparently hiring Tamagotchi daycare services.
Late daycare for a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, paying actual money for someone else to look after their pixel pet while they were at work or school so it wouldn't, die.
That's commitment. Dedicating real time and money to a simulation.
It really shows the level of attachment.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always just inconvenient. Sometimes it got dangerous.
Dangerous.
Well, the sources mention at least one instance where a woman actually caused a car accident. She was distracted by the constant beeping.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And another story about a woman on a plane who refused to turn her Tamagotchi off for takeoff, even when instructed by the crew.
She refused. What happened?
She chose to get off the plane rather than switch it off and risk its digital death.
Wow. Wow. That level of priority given to the device over, flying regulations and safety.
It really underlines how powerful that emotional pull was. It could literally override common sense, social rules, even safety concerns.
So if adults were doing that, I can only imagine what happened when these things flooded into schools.
Oh, total chaos. Instant disruption. Bans came down swift and hard pretty much everywhere.
Because of the beeping.
The constant, incessant beeping, yeah. Classrooms were impossible, and teachers were complaining kids were completely distracted, hiding them under desks, trying to feed them or clean up after them during lessons.
So the bans actually helped kill the initial fad, maybe.
Probably contributed to the decline of that first massive wave, yeah. But in a way, the bans also cemented its legacy. It showed just how much of an impact this thing had made, how disruptive and attention-grabbing it was for a whole generation.
But the real gut punch, the thing that shows the depth of the connection, is the grief, right?
Yeah.
When the pets die.
Yeah, that's where it gets really poignant, and you see the lines blurring between virtual and real emotion.
What kind of things happen?
Well, the source material talks about actual pet cemeteries. Like in the UK, setting aside specific sections just for dead Tamagotchis, kids would hold little funerals.
Funerals.
Yeah.
For a Tamagotchi.
Sincere ones. And online, memorial sites popped up everywhere, people writing obituaries for their pets, giving them names like Jimmy or Totem, describing how they died, maybe neglect, maybe just a glitch.
It wasn't just kids messing around.
It doesn't seem like it. The accounts suggest genuine sadness, real complex grief over this little collection of pixels. It just demonstrates how incredibly well that emotional attachment was designed, engineered right into the product.
And that design, that engineered attachment, that's really the core of why we're still talking about it today. That's the blueprint.
Exactly. Now we get into the psychology, the sort of secret sauce that made this simple gadget so foundational for everything that came after. It basically flipped the whole human-technology relationship on its head.
How so? Before Tamagotchi, tech was mostly there to serve us, right? TV, video games. They waited for us.
Right. They were passive tools, entertainment on demand. You turned on the Game Boy when you wanted to play.
But Tamagotchi wasn't like that.
Not at all. It was arguably the first mainstream piece of tech that made demands on you. It had its own internal clock, its own schedule, and it did not care one bit about your convenience.
It needed feeding now, cleaning now, whether you were busy or not.
Precisely. It didn't ask politely. It beeped insistently. It demanded your attention according to its needs, not yours.
And the core of that demanding relationship, the consequence, the fact that it could die, that was controversial, wasn't it?
Right.
Especially bringing it to the West.
Hugely controversial. Western marketers were apparently quite nervous about the death mechanic. They wanted to soften it.
Like, maybe it just flies away, goes back to its home planet.
Yeah, exactly. Something less final. But the focus groups, especially with kids, they pushed back.
Really? Kids wanted it to be able to die.
They did. They apparently told the researchers that without that real consequence, without the risk of failure, the relationship didn't feel real. It didn't matter as much.
So the death wasn't just a punishment, it was authenticity.
Exactly. It provided the high emotional stakes needed to make the care feel meaningful, to cement that feeling of responsibility. It made the connection stick.
And that constant neediness, the fact that it kept running even when you weren't looking, that established something we see everywhere now. Continuous play.
Yes, absolutely crucial. Unlike a normal game you could pause, save, and walk away from, the Tamagotchi's internal world kept ticking along.
It got hungry, it got older, it needed you, whether you were paying attention or not.
Right. It mimicked real-world responsibility in that sense. It required persistent, ongoing engagement. And that whole package, the demands, the consequences, the continuous nature that created what people call the Tamagotchi effect.
Which is basically developing real feelings for fake things.
Pretty much. Forming genuine, complex, emotional bonds with these non-sentient, virtual little creatures.
And science eventually backed this up.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just kids pretending.
Yeah, years later, they did fMRI studies, brain scans.
What did they find?
They monitored people, especially those who'd grown up with virtual pets while they were interacting with digital creatures. And their brains lit up in patterns similar to those seen when people care for, say, human babies or actual living pets. Specific nurturing circuits were being activated.
Okay, hold on. Nurturing circuits. Are we sure it's actual nurturing and not just conditioned response? Like, the beeping is annoying, pressing the button makes it stop so the brain learns the pattern. Pavlov's dog, but with pixels.
That's a really important question, and the sources address it. The key finding in those fMRI studies wasn't just about stimulus-response pathways, like a simple reflex. They saw activation in brain regions specifically associated with empathy, social bonding, and the reward pathways linked to successful caregiving. It was more complex than just beep, press button, silence.
So the combination of the persistence knowing it needed care over time and the consequence of failure, that triggered something deeper.
Exactly. It seems it engaged a more complex cognitive and emotional response system. The brain wasn't just reacting, it was engaging with the Tamagotchi's well-being as a kind of ongoing, genuine priority. It simulated the feeling of responsibility effectively enough to tap into those deeper circuits.
Which leads us directly from that 90s toy to the phone in your pocket right now.
Absolutely. The Tamagotchi basically normalized this idea that a device could and maybe even should constantly interrupt you, that it had a legitimate claim on your attention throughout the day.
It was like boot camp for notification culture.
Perfectly put. It was the pre-smartphone training ground. And it perfectly deployed a powerful psychological tool, the variable interval reinforcement schedule.
Okay, so that sounds technical. Variable interval reinforcement. Break that down. Why is that so important for understanding apps today?
Right. So in behavioral psychology, you have different ways rewards can be delivered, different schedules. A fixed schedule means the reward comes predictably, like getting paid every 2 weeks.
Okay, makes sense.
A variable schedule means the reward comes unpredictably. You don't know exactly when it's coming. An interval means it's based on time passing rather than the number of responses. So variable interval, unpredictable reward based on time.
Like checking your email. You don't know when a good one will arrive, so you keep checking.
Exactly like that. Or a slot machine paying out. That unpredictability is incredibly powerful at creating compulsive, continuous behavior. You keep checking, keep engaging, because you might get that reward next time.
And the Tamagotchi used this.
Its needs weren't perfectly predictable. You knew it would get hungry eventually, but you didn't know the exact second it would beep. You didn't know exactly when it would evolve or get sick or need cleaning. This constant low-level anxiety and anticipation. What does it need now? Is it okay? It drove that obsessive checking behavior. You kept interacting even when it wasn't strictly necessary, just in case.
Wow. So that feeling of anxiety and maybe even guilt that keeps us checking our phones, checking social media.
It's the same mechanism, just scaled up massively and applied to everything. Snapchat streaks, pure variable reinforcement. You have to maintain that daily connection, driven by the anxiety of breaking the chain.
Duolingo's owl.
Classic guilt-based persistence, playing on that learned responsibility. Instagram's endless scroll, the unpredictable reward of the next interesting post. The core logic is identical. Use the emotional levers the Tamagotchi first mapped out: responsibility, anxiety, anticipation, guilt, to keep you hooked, keep you engaged. Create a digital dependent, then monetize the attention it requires.
Okay, so the first big wave, the massive craze, it died down around 2000. But you said earlier it didn't disappear. It evolved.
Right. It didn't just fade away. Bandai was smart. They let it rest, then brought it back with new twists, adapting to the changing tech landscape that, ironically, it helped create.
What was the first big comeback?
The really crucial one was in 2004, the Tamagotchi connection, or Tamagotchi Plus in Japan.
Connection. Social.
Exactly. They added infrared IR connectivity, simple short-range communication, but it was revolutionary for the Tamagotchi.
What could they do?
Pets could now visit each other's devices, they could play games together, and the killer app, they could form friendships, fall in love, get married, and even have babies.
Babies. So your Tamagotchi could have kids with your friend's Tamagotchi.
Yep. which then started a new generation on your device. It suddenly added this whole social layer, this network effect.
That must have massively boosted engagement. Now, it wasn't just about your pet. It was about its social life, its relationship with your friends' pets.
Absolutely. Neglecting your pet didn't just affect you. It could mean missing out on a wedding or letting down your friend's pet. The sales numbers show how well it worked. Over 17 million units sold just in Japan in that first year alone. Social was the key.
Okay, so after adding social, where did it go next? Keeping up with tech must have been a constant challenge.
It was. They kept adding features incrementally. Tamagotchi ID in 2009 brought downloadable content, customizing your pet more. Later models got NFC for quick connections. Eventually, basic Wi-Fi features started creeping in.
Laying the groundwork for the
Yes,
Tamiverse.
exactly. That arrived properly with the Tamagotchi Uni in 2023. That model has full, always-on Wi-Fi connectivity. It connects to this online world, the Tamiverse.
So it's basically embraced the full social media always connected model now.
Pretty much. The Uni has community events, regular content drops, leaderboards, shared activities, all the stuff you expect from modern online games or platforms. It's the Tamagotchi fully integrated into the very digital ecosystem it helps spawn. Persistent, collective, always demanding attention.
But then, just when you think it's gone full digital, they do something different. This new Tamagotchi Paradise for 2025, it sounds almost backward-looking, with a zoom dial.
Isn't that fascinating? It's actually a really clever strategic move, I think. It shows they understand the current mood.
So?
Well, the Paradise has this physical dial, a tactile, analog way to interact, instead of just buttons or a touchscreen. It's deliberately retro.
And they're marketing it as an anti-scroll alternative.
Yeah. They're positioning it against the infinite, overwhelming feeds of social media, offering something simpler, more contained, more physical, but still with huge variety, apparently over 50,000 character variations.
So it's hitting that nostalgia nerve, but also offering a kind of digital detox vibe.
Exactly. And that combination points directly at who's buying these things now.
Not kids.
Not primarily. The main market, the big driver for Tamagotchi sales in 2025 is adults, specifically adults aged roughly 25 to 45.
The generation that grew up with the original.
Precisely. The kidult market. It's a huge segment globally, apparently responsible for about a quarter of all toy sales.
Well, a quarter.
Yeah, these are adults with disposable income, looking for nostalgia, sure, but also for quality, for emotional connection, maybe for simpler times.
So Bandai's leaning hard into that nostalgia plus premium feel.
Absolutely. It's not just a gimmick, it's their core strategy now. They understand that these adults aren't just buying a toy. They're buying a feeling, a memory, maybe even a managed, bounded slice of digital responsibility that feels less stressful than their smartphone.
Right. It's like digital care,
Right.
but without the infinite pressure of modern apps.
Yeah.
It has limits.
Exactly. It offers that connection and customization people crave, but maybe as a respite from the constant competition and noise of everything else online. The kidult market wants that blend of nostalgia and simplicity.
Okay, so Tamagotchi keeps evolving itself, but its influence spread way beyond just Bandai's products, right? It kicked off a whole genre.
Oh, massively. It's the ancestor of so many things. Digimon came out just a year later, 1997, very clearly inspired, but focused more on battling, often seen as the more masculine counterpart at the time.
Nintendogs, Neopet.
Direct descendants in spirit, even tiny things today, like those little pet widgets you can get on your phone screen, mochi pets, things like that. It all comes back to Tamagotchi.
And you mentioned even blockchain gaming. How does that connect?
It sounds like a huge leap, but the core mechanic is surprisingly similar. Think about games like Axie Infinity.
Okay. Breedable NFT creatures.
Right. You have to manage them, breed them, care for them. They need resources, digital food, items. If you neglect them, their value or their ability in the game goes down.
So it's resource management tied to caring for a digital dependent.
Exactly. That whole loop, investing emotionally and financially in a persistent digital creature whose well-being requires ongoing input and resource spending, that's the Tamagotchi care and growth mechanic, just repurposed for Web3 economics. The emotional engine became an economic engine.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, looking back at this whole journey, the success of the Tamagotchi raises some pretty big ethical questions, doesn't it? Especially with hindsight.
Definitely. It was one of the first mass-market products that really proved technology could be designed, intentionally, to make us feel things like anxiety, guilt, even grief, and then potentially to capitalize on those feelings.
Back in '96, maybe that just seemed like clever game design. But now, we talk confidently about persuasive tech, digital well-being, the ethics of engagement algorithms.
Right. And the mechanics Tamagotchi pioneered the constant demands, the consequences for neglect. They were maybe pedagogically useful then, teaching kids consistency maybe, but scaled up and applied relentlessly by modern platforms. Those same mechanics are now widely seen as contributing to stress, anxiety, maybe even addiction.
So is there a fundamental difference between the Tamagotchi's demands and, say, Instagram's demands? Or is it just a matter of scale?
I think the sources point to a really crucial distinction, the idea of bounded versus unbounded design.
Bounded versus unbounded. Okay, what does that mean?
Think about the Tamagotchi's needs. They were real, they were demanding, but they were finite. Feed it, clean it, play a game. Okay, its needs are met, for now. You could achieve a sense of completion. You could put it down.
There was an endpoint to the task, at least temporarily.
Exactly. It taught responsibility, arguably, but within constraints. The demands were bounded.
Whereas modern platforms.
Are inherently unbounded. The Instagram feed never ends. The notifications never stop completely. The goal isn't for you to feel done. The goal is infinite engagement.
Using infinite content, endless social comparisons, unpredictable rewards.
Precisely. They leverage infinite possibilities to keep you hooked indefinitely. Tamagotchi wanted your attention periodically. Modern platforms want all of it, all the time. One used boundaries to teach responsibility. The other erases boundaries to maximize engagement. That shift in scale and boundary feels like the critical ethical line.
And thinking about the design itself, in a world of incredibly complex apps and games, maybe there's a lesson in Tamagotchi's simplicity.
Absolutely. Its endurance speaks volumes about minimalist design. 3 buttons, simple pixel graphics, clear cause and effect.
It wasn't intimidating.
Not at all. It was mentally manageable. That simplicity made it massively accessible, but it still offered real emotional depth. It's like that quote from the Strong National Museum of Play suggested it offered connection, compassion, customization, but simply. It was a break from complex competitive gaming. That balance is still kind of a gold standard.
And finally, the brand itself. How Bandai managed to keep it alive, relevant, cycling through dormancy and resurgence. That's a masterclass in brand management.
It really is. They walked this tightrope perfectly. They evolved the tech, adding color, IR, Wi-Fi, the Tamaverse, but they never lost the core identity.
Still egg-shaped, still
Yeah.
3 buttons mostly, still about caring.
Exactly. They preserved the essence while updating the features. And they were smart about timing the comebacks, letting nostalgia build, preventing burnout, ensuring each new generation could discover it, alongside the original fans coming back as adults.
Okay, so summing up, this digital fossil, it's cast a very, very long shadow.
Undeniably. More than just a toy. It fundamentally rewired how humans started relating to digital things, how we perceive digital demands on our attention. It laid the emotional and mechanical groundwork for the algorithm age we're living in.
Its legacy isn't just the sales figures, it's the training. It showed how tech could tap into deep-seated needs for connection and care.
Exactly. Every time your phone buzzes and you feel that urge to check, every time an app makes you feel guilty for not engaging, every digital streak you feel compelled to maintain, you're feeling the echo of the lessons millions learned caring for that little pixel egg.
It proved digital things could feel like they matter, like they have a legitimate claim on us.
And the really profound takeaway, maybe the slightly unsettling one, is that once you train people to care about digital creations, that feeling and the business models built on it is incredibly hard to switch off. That emotional connection, once forged, tends to persist. The Tamagotchi's true immortality is in that psychological imprint.
Which leaves us with a final thought, especially as these new, super-connected versions like the Uni and the Paradise keep rolling out.
Right. As these digital dependents become even more sophisticated, more integrated into our lives, what responsibility do the creators have?
What's the ethical weight of designing things that deliberately demand so much of our finite time, our finite attention, our emotional energy, especially for the next generation growing up with them?
That's the big question that Tamagotchi's legacy forces us to keep asking.